everybody, welcome to this video tutorial. Today we're going to have a look at how to design SQL queries with joins. This video tutorial series has been following a scenario which has resulted in a database with 4 entities. Each entity is a table. Each table has fields, and one of those fields is going to represent the primary key. The primary key field is the field which makes every record in the database table unique. The trips table is interesting because the primary key is composed of 2 fields. This is known as a composite primary key. Also, the trips table has 1, 2, 3 foreign keys. A foreign key, for example driver ID, is a field in a table which is also the primary key field in another table. So here we have a kind of a relationship between tables. For example, if driver ID is 1 in this table, we can now go and look for that driver ID in this table. Driver ID is 1, and then we can find out the first name, last name, and address of that driver. Okay, so that's the beauty of creating foreign key fields in a database table. Now, what I wanted to do today was create an SQL query where we can display all of the trips, and for each trip, I want to grab the driver ID, find it in the drivers table, and then display the corresponding first name, last name, and address of that driver. Now, I do have a small problem here. Let me try and explain the problem. Here's my current trips table, and here are all my driver IDs. But when I go to the drivers table, I've got those driver IDs, 1, 5, and 6. Remember, those are the only drivers who are currently driving on a trip, on 5 and 6. But in the drivers table, we've got some additional drivers. I'm not really interested in these drivers. I just want to deal with drivers who are on trips, okay? So what I mean is, I'm only interested in selecting data from my database table where a driver has a corresponding trip. We can kind of represent that with this kind of Venn diagram. What we've got here, I'm going to call this an inner join. Okay? And we can create that join by understanding that this foreign key in the trips table is related to this primary key in the drivers table. Okay? So let's look at how to set up an inner join in SQL. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select everything from, let's say, the trips table, and I'm going to create that inner join on the drivers table. Now that inner join, we need to set up that relationship between the foreign key in the trips table and the primary key in the drivers table. So I'm selecting everything from this table, but also any related data in the drivers table where this condition is true. Okay, now let's run this SQL. I'm just going to copy it, and now I'm going to run it. Let's see if it works. Yay, okay. So here's all my data from the trips table, and it's telling me that driver ID 1, let's go and find it in the drivers table. There it is. And then we can access the related data. Driver number 1 is Jack Lake, who lives at 14 Harlem Road. Okay, so we're using an inner join to get the data that we want to get from the database table. Database tables. Now let's go back to our SQL. We could also do this. I also want to know which route the trip is going to be taking. So let's just create another inner join between this table here, trips, and another table, routes. And we need to define the relationship. So this time it's going to be the foreign key root ID in the trips table is the same as the primary key in the routes table. Okay. So let's run this and see if we get the correct result. Yes, we do. Here's all the data from the trips table. Driver ID is number 1, and here we go. This is all the driver ID number 1 data. The route ID is number 1, and here's all the route ID data from the routes table. Okay? And continuing with that idea, we could create another inner join on the buses table. Okay? I'm not going to do that right now, but we could do another one on the buses table to find out which bus is traveling on this trip. Of course, we don't need to select everything all the time. Maybe I just want to do, okay, select trips dot, let's say bus num. I want to know the bus number. I want to know the driver's name. And I want to know the route start and finish. Route start and finish, and also the date of the trip. Now remember, I've created a join between trips and drivers and trips and routes. So I should be able to do trips, drivers, routes. That should work. If I wanted buses.aircon, I wouldn't be able to do that at the moment because I haven't joined the buses table to the SQL. Okay, so I wouldn't be able to do that one yet. Let's just take that one away. Let's run. And there you go. For every trip, we know the bus number, the name of the driver, and the start and finish point, and the date of the trip. That is an introduction to inner joins in SQL.